Hello and welcome to Higher Results, where business, workforce, and talent intersect. I'm Melodie Reagan, CEO of Eye Workforce, and your host. On Higher Results, we're about all things HR. We're here to help you with tips and tools about recruiting, hiring, onboarding, all the way through to performance management, to retirement, and even termination. We're here to help you build that high-performing workforce as well as successful career. We air every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Mountain Time on IPTV. You can find that at ipnow.tv. And we also, just so you know, if you missed an episode, we have past episodes on eye2eyeworkforce.com. But importantly, to view the show live each week, go to Facebook at Innovation Pavilion, or you can check us out at Higher Results. We're really glad to have you here today, and we're going to jump in. We have an exciting topic, one that I struggle with on a regular basis, and that's my time management. And we have an amazing guest. But before we jump in, a couple of things that I just want to ask you, and I want you to slow down and think about it. You know, in the course of your day and in the course of your week, where does your time go? Do you feel like you're getting the greatest return on your time? And if you step back as a business owner and leader and ask yourself, whose time is most important? And we all say time is money, right? Time is money. And there's not enough hours. I can tell you one of the things my team hears me say all the time, please give me more hours than a day. And I actually have to tell you, I had this happen in the last 24 hours. My COO said to me, no, Melodie, that's not the answer. More time is not the answer. Well, I'm excited to tell you that we have an amazing guest who has a book that has been published called Own Your Time. So it's Own Your Time, and our guest today is Stephanie. Are you ready? Are you ready for this? You're going to love it. It is Stephanie Wachman. Stephanie is an executive coach. She's an author and she's a speaker, and she's more than just a single book author, right? So with that, Stephanie, do us a favor and welcome to the show. Please tell us a little bit about you and your background and the clients that you work with.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's really great to be here. So my background, I'm actually from Canada, to go way back. And I worked in business development and sales and at an executive level for about 15 years. And what I kept struggling with was like time. I never had enough time. I had a family. I was stressed out. I felt sick. I had migraines. And I said, you know what? I've got to stop. I've got to stop doing this. And this idea came into my mind. What about coaching? I always thought I enjoyed working with people and helping with management and leaders and helping them to get better. And I said to my husband, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to do this thing called coaching. And I'm going to really focus on helping people find work-life balance. And he said, go for it. And I thought he was going to say, you're crazy. What are you leaving all this great business behind? But he did. And I went for it. And I studied coaching and I started to work with a lot of attorneys, a lot of professionals. And the same topic kept coming up over and over and over again. We don't have enough time. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I'm not spending quality time with my family. And so I started to think about all the same recurring topics that kept coming up. And I said, I'm going to write a book about this because the solutions that I had were really helpful. Not only did they help my clients achieve better results at work, their profitability went up, their performance went up, but their quality family time improved dramatically as well. And I think that's what it's all about. We work nonstop. Everybody's working all the time. So when I work with my clients on time management, we're working really not just about what you're doing at work, but also what you're doing at home. And the other work that I do as an executive coach is I help professionals with their professional development, leadership skills, communication styles, that type of topic.
You know what? Actually, what I want to say just right up front, is there like this little checklist? Come on, everybody, you can raise your hand and say this. You sounded like me. I mean, it was like boom, boom, boom. And I'm sure that that's true just even across the board and with people, all the demands. It's not just a job. It has to do with family demands. We're in the sandwich generation. We might have children. We have parents, etc. I mean, it's just we're living in an incredibly demanding life, and it's crazy for me. So here's what I want to know. When you talk about your techniques and becoming a time management expert, how did you come up with techniques before we jump into what they actually are and some of the things that you're going to share with us today? How did you discover something? Because There's a lot of people who have a lot of different tools and techniques.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you figure something out, and why might this be the one that could be right for me?
I think what I did was, first of all, trial and error. I was my own guinea pig. So I tried it all on myself first.
Yeah.
But the idea behind the way that I work with time management is not about how can I do better with Outlook or what's the right app for this. I'm really about the behaviors that go into time management. The why are you working all the time? Why are you not putting down your cell phone when you come into the house? Like, why are you not present when you're with the people you care about the most? So my questions were always around the why, around behavior. So if you could change the behavior, then you can change the outcome with the time management. So that's how I started to do it.
By the way, though, that is a big deal. There are tools, but it really does come down to us individually and what are the behaviors and what works for each of us individually. Okay, so let's start with this, though, before we jump in.
Yeah.
Why do we have issues with time management? Because it's chronic. It's, we used to associate this with just being business leaders, right? It's everybody. Everybody is struggling with this. Why?
I think there's something like a badge of honor, first of all, when you say, I am crazy busy, right? Everybody likes to say that, and now it becomes a badge of honor to say you're crazy busy. When people tell me they're crazy busy, I just say you're crazy. You're holding on to that. So first, let that go. Stop saying you're crazy busy and start taking ownership of your schedule and your time. And the reason we're so busy, there's a number of reasons. One is a lot of us work at home. A lot of us are working at an office, but we're taking our work home with us all the time. So you never really have a chance to unplug. When we go on vacations, we're expected to check in all the time. That you just don't stop. And all the research says that if you don't stop, if you just go, then burnout can happen really quickly.
By the way, what is burnout? When somebody says that they're having burnout, what does that really mean?
When you're sick and tired of getting up in the morning to go to work, when you can barely drag yourself to the office, when you're incredibly irritable. So if somebody comes into your office and you're like, what? That's when you know you're getting close to getting there. There's some different signs. If you start having medical problems, I remember when I was working, I was traveling a lot for my job and I had a young son, and I would get really bad migraines. And it was related to the stress I was having. So when you start having medical conditions, that's another sign. And what happens is we ignore them. We drink, we take pills, we ignore the signs instead of taking care of ourselves. So you're going to notice, and people that are watching are going to notice, like if you're starting to have shortness of breath, if you're starting to get nauseous when you get to work, those are signs that maybe it's time to revisit what you're doing and if it's the right thing for you.
By the way, I think that's a fantastic observation. Okay, so one of the questions that I actually have for you is, you speak about how we kind of sabotage ourselves. So what are some of the things that we actually do and why?
Everybody has their own reasons. Everybody has their own motivations for why they sabotage themselves. But there's a number of reasons. Some people procrastinate with their work. They put things off forever. Does that happen? It happens. We all put things off. The question is why. Sometimes you don't ask yourself, why am I putting this off? And an underlying reason for that is fear. People who procrastinate all the time are fearful of something. They might be perfectionists, and if the work that they're doing isn't exactly perfect, then they're going to hold off on doing it because they just don't know how to get to perfect. So people who are very focused on everything being perfect all the time get it in their own way. They sabotage themselves. People that think that they can't say, set up boundaries for themselves. Like, I'm not going to spend time at work now, even, it's at 8:00 at night. If they don't set boundaries for themselves and honor themselves, then they're definitely sabotaging themselves. But the biggest areas I see where people sabotage is around procrastination and perfectionism.
By the way, one of the things, and there are actually studies that are out there, so everything in balance. Procrastinating is actually sometimes something that creatives do. And sometimes it's a thought process that it's their way of mulling things to create. And it's actually a healthy thing. So it's all things in balance. And it's kind of like finding that balance for you. But, one thing that I've observed for myself and even with my workforce is boundaries. Boundaries it's something that we all have like a big, I think we have a pretty big issue with as a society in whole. I think it's ironic. I think my son is pretty impressive with how he establishes boundaries, where he's learned it, but I struggle with that. So why do you think we struggle so much with boundaries?
We're terrified of saying no. If I say no to you, then you're going to maybe not like me. And if you don't like me, then I won't feel good, or you won't ask me for something again. When we're in the workforce, like when we're working and somebody sends us an email that we can't do, or we're asked to sit on a board that we don't want to sit on, or we're asked to do one more thing. I mean, this happens, I'm sure, with all of your clients where they're asked to do one more thing, but nobody's taking off the work that they're already doing. So it's just piling on. It's stacking on.
That's exactly.
And we say, sure, we'll do it. Yeah, okay. But really, we need to say no. When we say yes and we can't do it, it causes a lot of anxiety.
Oh, it's totally terrible.
Exactly. It causes anxiety and stress. So setting boundaries is really important, but we have to know how to do it in a way that you say no to one thing, but you say yes to another.
By the way, you'd be proud of me. I was asked recently to be on a board, and I said no.
Yay!
So it was one of those. Okay. So what would somebody do to understand what are the things that they're doing themselves to sabotage how they're managing their time? So how would I identify it? For example, it might be one thing for me. It might be another thing for one of my directors, Joel, or it might be another thing for Diane. It's like, if I go through, how do I identify it for myself?
There's a couple of things, but here's my biggest tip, my biggest tool that I think is so important is that the second you get to work, if you jump on your email right away and jump into meetings right after that, and then get back on your emails right after that, then you can be sure that you're sabotaging your own success. And the best thing to do is to come into organize, but come into your office. Have a cup of coffee. You need your coffee first thing in the morning, but then give yourself 10 minutes to think strategically. Like, give yourself 10 clear minutes to just pause and think, okay, what do I need to accomplish to make today the best day possible? And so one of the things that we don't do is we don't stop to think strategically. We just go, 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 go. And the things we set out to do, we don't always get to because we're too busy responding to emails and getting after one thing, after the next, after the next, after the next. So pausing to think strategically to me is an important way to avoid sabotaging yourself, because when you come into work, you can't just put out fires all day long and expect to get anything really done.
By the way, one thing along those lines, because email has always, and it will continue to be an issue, and I am a person that goes 7 days a week, but I have developed a policy. I know, but it is. It's a fact. I am a person, though, it's like, if I'm with somebody, my phone is down. I'm not going to, if I'm in a meeting or whatever, I'm going to come off of whatever it is that I'm doing, except in certain situations that I know that there are certain dynamics where I might be in a multitasking because that's the demand in that moment. But generally, it's like if you and I are getting together and have a meeting, my phone's down, my computer's down, I am with you. And I think that's one of the things that can break some of the behaviors. It's like, be present.
It's so important. As a matter of fact, there was some very interesting research that came out about 2 years ago. And it said that every time that you allowed for distraction, so if you're talking to me, but then you get a ping from your email and you look at your email and you come back, whatever it is, then you lose 25 minutes of productivity. Yeah. So for allowing for all those distractions all the time, you lose productivity, you lose focus. And so it's important to say, I'm going to turn off my email, I'm going to turn off my phone, I'm going to focus to get this accomplished in the best way.
Yeah.
And you said something about multitasking also, that it's really almost impossible for our brains to know what that means. Our brains switch from one task to another, except for chewing gum and listening to classical music.
Fantastic. You know what, they talk about IQ. One of the things that happens as you try to do too much is it'll bring your IQ down. Right. So if you just want to be in that moment, you want to go a little bit further, which, by the way, you and I are right now being in this moment. So we are practicing what we are talking about.
That's right.
All right. So what would be some of your bits of advice that somebody can do to improve their own time management?
I have a few little tips and tricks that you can do right off the bat.
And I'm listening.
Take notes.
I'm taking
The first
notes.
one I already mentioned, which is think strategically. I think it's really important to do that every day. The other thing is to carry a little notebook with you, something that's crazy and funky and loud and obnoxious looking, like really that you can't miss. And as you're talking, even as I'm talking to you right now, you might be thinking, oh my gosh, I need to buy toothpaste.
Get out of your head.
And so you dump it down. And I call this book like a brain dumping book, where you carry it with you and you just write down all those thoughts that pop into your mind that have nothing to do with anything relatively important. And that way that doesn't cause what I call mental clutter, that stuff that just stands in your brain, like I've got to go to the vet, like those little things. And you just jot them down so that you have a place for them to go and it keeps you clear. The other biggest rule that I have or tool that I have is to say no. We touched on it briefly, but when you say no to one thing, it might be really hard and uncomfortable and you might be nervous that nobody's going to like me if I say no. But if you say no to one thing, ask yourself what you're saying yes
That's
to.
true.
So by saying no to sitting on that board, what are you saying yes to? And that's another really good tool, because when you think about what you say, yeah, I'm saying yes to me. I'm saying yes to more time for myself. That really makes it very important, and you free yourself up when you start saying no more often.
By the way, when I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about the list, I'm very much a list person.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's different, and this goes to I'm a big proponent of strength finders.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a natural list person because
Mm-hmm.
I'm an achiever,
Mm-hmm.
and I just have to. When I start feeling extremely stressed, what happens for me is I just have to sit down and I have to work my list, and it just takes so much of the stress off of me because it's like I have a sense of control,
Right.
as opposed to things bantering for me,
Right.
and keeping it in my head because I track things. I will just chronically track.
Right,
So
you'll
that's
replay it over and over and over.
I will, and it's like just get it out.
And
Okay,
that's actually
yeah.
a distraction. So we talked about just those distractions costing us time, but you have internal distractions and you have the external ones like the tweets and the Facebook and all the social media, but you have the internal things like you're saying, tracking in your mind, and it's like, how do I turn that off? You found a way for it, and that's a great idea. Like if I figure
Just
out what it is, like get it out.
Get it out.
Yeah.
Well, another one though that you talk about in terms of time management, prioritization.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go about prioritizing? How are you handling all of the things that you have on your plate? And by the way, this is also, I actually think so. Stephanie did a book on time management. I think you could do a whole book on prioritization.
I could.
Prioritization all by itself is a big deal. And so how do you handle prioritization?
There's two ways that I usually talk to my clients about. One way is the Eisenhower model, which is out there on Google if anybody wants to look it up. But basically, it's about putting in boxes things that are urgent, that are not urgent, that are urgent and important,
Right.
that are important but not urgent, and then filling it in every day so you know what you have to do. And the urgent things have deadlines attached to it. The important things
Right.
you can figure out as well. So that's one way. The way that I have found to be the most successful is depending on your business, what you're doing. So if you have administrative work, you make a list of all the administrative things you have to do. If you do outreach, let's say you're a nonprofit, you do outreach, that's another category that you fill everything in that's related to that. Or if you're in a business, like you're a business professional and everything you do is
Administrative. Okay.
right,
Fine.
revenue generating.
Yes.
Then you write down whatever is revenue generating. So it's 3 boxes. The first is administrative. The next is revenue generating or whatever is really important to your business function. And the third is personal. And you fill in those buckets and then you put blocks in your calendar for each one. The problem that I see happening most is when you jump from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next without having a good flow, it causes us to get very distracted and very confused. So if you can block a time in your calendar for like Monday mornings, I'm going to do outreach or revenue generating work or work that's related to hiring or whatever it is, it's a block of time focused for that. And then you can break it into, okay, well, what administrative work, like expense reports, administrative duties that I have, I put that into another block. It helps you look at your calendar and know what to do next.
Planning ahead. Marking everything. Planning ahead, right? You know what I'm going to tell you, though, is how do we do that in the sense, business, it doesn't flow that way. You have emergencies. Mm-hmm. You have all kinds of things that come at you on a chronic basis. Yes. So how do you deal with that?
You have to go by what's most important. first of all, you have to accept that you're never going to be perfect. There's no such thing as like, my schedule is going to be perfect. You know it's never going to happen. But you can frame it out so that it's more controlled. And when you have anything associated with a deadline, or a fire is burning, there's an employee problem that you have to put out that fire, then you know that you have to move things around. But the idea is to frame it out and do your best to kind of keep control over it to the best of your ability.
So, you know what, here's for me, to develop a habit, it takes some effort. So I just want to say, you've given us some tips. I want to know, how would somebody go about creating a habit here? How are we going to get this and put it together? What do you think?
I think the first step is having awareness. If you're aware that you're procrastinating, if you're aware that you're easily distracted, or that you allow people to come into your office nonstop, or that you're working on something and you allow the email to distract you, like if you get an email right away that you're going back and forth, if you're aware of all of those things, that's the first step, right? Then the next step is pick one thing. I'm no longer going to allow emails to interrupt my work.
Okay, pick
all day
one
long.
thing.
One thing, just one little thing, and say, okay, when I'm focusing on writing an employee agreement or something, I'm going to turn off my pop-ups for an hour, and I'm just going to focus on that. And just do one little thing like that. Or I'm going to continue to keep this brain dumping book next to me and jot things down as they come to me. And that's another thing. The idea is that we all try to be so perfect. I don't want anyone to be perfect. It takes a while to develop new habits. Your old habits are so ingrained in you. So give yourself 21 days, give yourself 30 days to say, I'm just going to try this one thing today for the next 30 days. And then move on to the next one and see how that works for you. And if you start to catch your breath, you know you're on the right track.
You know what that makes me think of? I got a text today from a colleague, and I love this. The text that he sent me was, it's not about getting it right. It's not about doing it right. It's about getting it right. And I love that. It's not about doing it right. It's not about being right. It's about getting it right at the end of the day. What a great thing for us to think about. Okay, so here's something that I want to ask you, Stephanie, before I ask you for that little tidbit of information. You know what? You've told me you're going to be working on another book. What's your other book going to be about?
Well, I've got 2 books. One is coming out in about 3 months, and it's on business development for professionals. So for those who are in professions that have to really, eat what they kill, so to speak, it's how do you do sales without selling? I'm a big proponent of relationship building and understanding how to build relationships. So this whole book is about that. And then my 3rd book, which I just started writing, is on failure. It's called Own Your Failure, and it's about not how you've overcome it, but how you worked through it to get to the other side.
Oh, fantastic. And so, you know what? Own Your Time. Where would I go and get that book?
It's available on Amazon.
There you go. What isn't available on Amazon?
Or you can go to my website as well.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And by the way, we'll make sure that you have a link on our website to do that. And then, I always love the little tidbits, so I'm not going to just end there. And but one thing I am going to say, I think that for professionals that, your other book that you're talking about, when you're an independent contractor, you're professional, you're an attorney, even in our business, because we are time and material. Time is money. And, part of our time management, one of the things that I think actually influences it is the fact that time is money. And time, we've gotten to a place where we're just trying to track it and master it. And honestly, time so often masters us.
It does.
So here's my, in terms of the wrap, I love this. If you had one little bit of information to share, what's that little nugget that you're going to tell everybody here today and the people who are watching our show? If there's one thing you don't want me to forget relative to just really killing it on my time management, what would that be?
My biggest thing is ask yourself why. Why am I working late? Why am I so crazy? Why am I like a person putting up fires all day long? Is there anything I can do differently? We don't reflect enough. We don't ask ourselves why. So ask yourself why. And if the answer is because I don't know what to do, because I don't know how to delegate, then figure out how to do it better.
Why? So we're going to end our show today with the why. So why? And then one thing that actually comes to mind too is I always love the feedback from my team members too. So to ask them what their impressions are of what I'm doing, because there's what I know about me, and then That's what they know about me. And they're used to me always giving them feedback. I love it when they give me feedback too.
Right.
So, well, Stephanie, thank you so much for being with us today. And thank you for the sage advice, which I really love because all too often my time is mastering me and I'm not mastering my time. So I have a few whys in there that I need to work on. So with that, thank you so much. And you guys, we're actually going to call this a wrap. And I want to thank everybody for being here today. Remember, we air every Tuesday at 3 p.m. So let's just make sure that you're there, 3 p.m. Mountain Time. You can watch us on Facebook. We're either on Innovation Pavilion or you can see us on Higher Results. Go to ipnow.tv for prior episodes. And you can also see us at Eye to Eye Workforce. And one little tidbit I want to add in here. We're here to give you those tips and tools around HR. If you have another thing that you are interested in or you want to know about, please visit us at Eye to Eye Workforce and give us some questions. Give us some guidance on what you want to learn, and you can affect a future show topic. With that, we'll see you next week. And until then, we're wishing you higher results.